Hi everyone, my name is Moni,
And I'm Naveen from Before You Play.
and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Board Games, where we talk about a couple of games that we've been playing recently and how we feel about them. It is now Spooky Month,
Yes.
so this
October.
is a spookier episode.
We have
It's
four
not.
games that are spooky adjacent, I would say, at the best.
At best.
At best. Well, I guess a couple of them are.
I think only half of them
Maybe
really
half, yeah.
have any sort of relation to October
Yeah.
and its going abouts, I guess. Every year we do try to play some games that, in the past we've enjoyed playing games such as Dead of Winter.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably the most prominent one that we return to every year.
Horror-themed games like
Yes,
that? Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So if you're playing any games that are in the spirit of the Halloween season, let us know what games you've been playing. But for now, we're going to be talking about 4 different games today, one of which is a solo game.
I
which
have
is
not
nice.
played it. You have played it.
Yes, and otherwise, just so you're aware, all 4 games that we're going to be featuring are games that were sent to us as review copies.
Yes, that's right.
So let's get into the game, shall we?
Okay, first one came out originally in 2023. We've been wanting to play it for quite some time now, about 2 years. This is from 25th Century Games here in the US, designed by Maxime Romberg and Theo Riviere, and it is Dracula versus Van Helsing.
Spooky game.
Yes, this is one of the 2 spooky games. This is a 2-player only game where one player is going to be taking on the role of Dracula and the other one is Van Helsing. And you basically have an asymmetric win goal. As Dracula, you are trying to convert a good majority of the townsfolk into vampires. And if you're Van Helsing, you're basically trying to stop Dracula from doing that, but also erode Dracula of their health.
Yes, so very thematic, right? Because Van Helsing is a vampire slayer.
Yes.
And of course, Dracula is a vampire.
Heard of him. I've heard of him.
Now, the way that the game works is there is a map that is split up into various districts, and each player has their own card holder. And at the start of the game, we're going to have various cards, which are more like cardboard tiles in each of the different slots on our card holder, which corresponds to the various districts on the map. And what you're trying to do is by the end of each round, you want to have the stronger tile in the same spots on each of our tableaus because that means you win over that district. And so if you are Dracula, that would mean that you get to convert somebody in that district into a vampire.
Yep.
And if you're Van Helsing, then you get to remove a health point from Dracula.
Right.
Now, the way that the game actually works is it's very simple. On your turn, you're going to draw a card tile from the deck. And you'll either replace one of your own card tiles or you just discard it. But regardless of which you choose, whatever card gets discarded is the card that you activate because all of the different numbers have a different effect.
Right.
That will allow you to do things such as swapping the placements of several cards or even swapping the positions of one of our cards.
I think there's like one that's like reveal your opponent's card or
Yes.
like the position that you'd like. So this game is really about optimizing your personal hand so that by the time the end of the round is triggered, that you are winning a majority of these different regions so that you can push your end game goal.
Right, and there are actually different suits. So the cards are color-coded because there's always going to be a trump suit at any given time. So you know basically which color is the strongest. But one of the values allows you to also just change whatever color that is.
Yep.
So you're really having to sort of go with the flow, and you really, just like Naveen said, you want to optimize your tableau by the end of the round. And after a certain point on your turn, instead of drawing a card, you can choose to just end the round, but that would allow the opposite player to take one more turn before the round actually ends. So if you've played a game like Cabo or the Silver series, it almost feels like those sorts of games where you're trying to optimize the cards that you have in front of you. To try to have like the lowest score. But with this game, there's a little bit more to it because you're trying to win over the various districts. The positioning of your cards matter.
Yeah.
But just like those games, there is a mechanic in here where if a card becomes revealed, it stays revealed. So there is a little bit of, I know which card is in Naveen's, X position.
Yep.
So I can sort of try to cater my tableau accordingly. Right?
Yeah, like if you know that like there's nothing you can do because I have a very strong card, maybe you can focus your attention on the other 4 districts instead of saying, okay, how am I going to beat that one card?
Right.
Or if you know you have something of high value, you're trying to find a way to get it so that the round ends as quick as possible so that you can one-up your opponent, especially if you're Dracula, you're really trying to flip those townsfolk over to vampires, and there's some valuable districts as the game kind of goes on. You're just trying to get as many of those people to kind of flip over to your side.
And it's interesting because the lower the value card you discard, the worse or the more painful the card effect you have to resolve. Because obviously if you're swapping out like a 1 for something of higher value, then that swap is beneficial to you. But the card effect is not typically beneficial. It probably will make you reveal your card or something. But the higher the value card that you have to discard, the better. The highest value of each suit is an 8. And if ever you were to discard an 8, as long as 6 cards have already been played that round, then it immediately ends a round. So it could be a good strategy for you to be able to end the round without giving your opponent an extra turn.
Yeah,
right?
so the 8 is basically you can't just discard it. If like sometimes in these kind of games you get a good kind of like hand. You can't just end the round like on turn 2.
Right,
The game
right,
has
right.
like this built-in mechanism that forces you to have to continue to play the round.
Yes.
To give your opponent at least a chance to kind of chip away at you. So I do appreciate that. But the 8 is like kind of a power move when you discard it. You're like, I'm doing this because I know I'm ending this game right now.
Yes, you're forfeiting a very high valued card, but you're getting the upper hand in terms of potentially scoring better, right? If you feel like your hand is stronger.
Yep.
Now, like Naveen was mentioning, there is a bit of a timer that requires you to wait a little bit before you can end the round, and I appreciate that because even if you're not removing cards from your tableau, anytime you draw a card, even if you were to just discard that card and not replace, you still have to activate that card's effect, which may require you to sort of mess with your tableau.
Yeah, sometimes like you'll find yourself, you draw a card and you're like, I don't want this to trigger because it's really bad for me. This does not help me with the other 5 cards that I have on my side. And by the way, all these cards are secret to your opponent until they get revealed.
Until they get revealed.
So it's like, I have no idea what you're doing over there with your tinkering, and you have no idea until it gets revealed. Sometimes you get a card and you're like, this effect stinks right now. But if I just discard it, it's going to really hurt me.
Right.
So I guess I can put it here, buy myself some time, get rid of this card. I can activate that effect. Okay, fine, that effect is okay. Let's just move some things around, and I can find my way out of this kind of situation. So it does create a little bit of those moments, and then also once you start getting like a leg up in certain districts, then like if you're Dracula, you're like, I need to get into another district so I can flip those humans over.
Right. So now your attention is only on specific positions in your
yeah.
tableau, not necessarily the entire hand.
Yep.
Now, in terms of the end game goals, the game ends either if Dracula completely runs out of health, then Van Helsing wins, or if Dracula is able to convert 4 citizens in the same district into vampires, then that is another way that the game can end. Otherwise, if you get to the end of the 5th round, then Dracula just wins.
Yeah, you can run out the clock.
So this plays an important role in the strategy as well, because you're not just trying to win as many districts as possible as Dracula. You want to flip over specific
humans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas Van Helsing just wants to deplete Dracula's life force. So it's interesting. It's actually a very quick game. Like the 5 rounds, depending on how the game goes, you may not get there.
It's got to be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It says
30
on the box.
minutes.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, each round is very quick. You just sort of reset and you do it again. But the visibility rule was a little bit difficult to remember to do at first.
Yeah, even though like we've played Cabo, which
Yeah.
is like once a card is exposed, like it always that section always stays exposed. This for some reason it was just not clicking.
It's
like,
not as intuitive
yeah.
when it's in like the cardstock form and
Yeah.
like when they're actually in a tableau, like having
Yeah.
to lay it out for some reason is not
Yeah.
as intuitive. The more you get into it, the more it flows a little bit more. Components wise, the card tiles are a little bit difficult to shuffle.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why they didn't just use cards. It's like these like
they're small.
it's like
So that
smaller.
they can
yeah.
fit. I guess it just makes sense
Slot
to
in.
be able to slot it in your
Probably
tableau.
for packaging purposes. I don't know.
But otherwise, it really does feel like a 2-player Cabo. I don't know if you've ever played that game before, but this is a game that we've played a lot of in the past, like the Cabo Silver series. I think they're based off a game called Golf.
Yeah, the card game
Like a
golf where you're
classic
trying to
game
lower
golf.
your score.
Yeah, we're just trying to have the lowest score, but
Yep.
there's just a little bit more to it. So I feel like we're a little bit more biased towards liking a game like this. But there's also, I don't know, the added complexity. I don't know if it necessarily adds more enjoyment to it. What do you think?
I think it even though I said it plays short, by the time we got to round 5, it felt like what we were doing in the game was a little bit dragged out.
Like samey?
Samey, maybe a little bit. There was some times like where I just didn't feel like I was making super clever moves, and it was just kind of like at the end, like especially if you get like a good draw, you're like, oh, I just drew like a really nice trump card. I'm gonna slot that in right here, and then like unless Monique can somehow draw or discard a card that's gonna force me to kind of reveal this or mess around with my stuff. Like I got this thing locked out. So like there is a luck of the draw in this game that I think For me, it's like just okay. It didn't meet expectations. It might have been like a little bit under expectation, but still an enjoyable experience, but it's not one that I am going to be gravitating to on a regular basis.
For me, I think I liked it a little bit more than Naveen
Yeah.
did. I really enjoy the fact that it is so quick. It's that same experience with a little bit more strategy to it, a little bit more depth in a very short amount of time. And it's 2-player only. But I do agree that it's not necessarily one that I would constantly gravitate towards.
Yep.
So, anywho, that is Dracula versus Van Helsing.
There you go.
All right, moving on to the next game. This is a solo game this time. So Naveen has not played
haven't
this,
tried
so
this, yeah.
please bear with me a little bit here, Naveen.
No
But
problem.
it is our second spooky theme game of the day, and it's a solo game called Witchcraft. Now, Witchcraft is published by 25th Century Games, and it's designed by 3 different designers, David Thompson, Roger Tankersley, and Trevor Benjamin. And I believe this is a re-implementation of another solo game called Resist. Now, what you're doing in this game is I believe you lead a coven of witches, and each time you play, there are 3 jurors who you are trying to convince of your innocence.
Okay.
And so the way that you do this is by going on a series of missions, playing witch cards from your hand, and trying to increase each of the jurors' persuasion markers because
You're trying to persuade them.
Yes, you're trying to persuade them exactly because at the start of the game, during setup, each juror is assigned 2 face-down secret conviction cards that have values that go up to, I believe, 5. And at the end of the game, you're going to reveal those conviction cards, and if the persuasion of that juror is higher than the sum of those values, then you've convinced them of your innocence. And your true goal is to get all 3 of those jurors to think you're innocent.
So your target goal is to exceed the values of the cards.
Of the values of the cards, exactly. Which you don't know what their values are at the start of the game.
Okay.
Now, the way that each round works is you're going to have a hand of cards, and these cards are all witches. There are also a few curse cards in your deck, which sort of clog up your hand and make it so that you can't play a full hand of witches, which is unfortunate. And each round, you have to play out all of the witches that are in your hand.
Okay.
Now, when you play them out, there's 2 sides to each witch card. You can either play them as hidden, in which case you would be able to shuffle them back into your deck once you run out of cards, or you can reveal them and they'll essentially go out of your deck because there's a bit of a deck building sort of. You don't really add witches back into your deck, but they do leave your deck.
So when you say they're 2-sided, is like one side a higher value than the other one?
It depends on the witch
Okay.
because each witch they'll have a certain ability, and sometimes they're better depending on where
way
you
you play
are
it.
in the
Okay.
game. But each witch also has a certain amount of power, and that is really what you want to look at because each round you're actually going to choose a juror, and each juror has a mission assigned to them as well as a certain amount of these challenge cards.
Okay.
And your ultimate goal is to try to overcome that mission while also overcoming as many of the challenge cards as you can. And when you actually do this, it's really just about adding up the total amount of power that you had in your hand via these witch cards and doing the math and seeing basically which cards you can divvy out your power to and eventually overcome that mission.
Gotcha.
So there is a sort of strategy in terms of when you play your witch cards because there are 2 times during the round when you can play them. You can play them at the very beginning before you choose the mission. Or you can play them right after choosing the mission cards because that's when all the challenge cards get revealed and
Oh,
you
I
sort
see.
of know what you're working with.
Okay.
But you never really know which challenge cards are going to come up, and some of them are really bad. Some of them are like, you cannot even attempt the mission until you defeat me, and what if I
Oh,
don't
I
have
see.
enough power amongst all the witches that I played?
So you just get surprised by the situation.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
really just divvying out the amount of power to these various cards. But you really want to accomplish the mission because if you do that, that is truly the way that you increase the persuasion of the juror.
I see.
And one of the ways in which you can just lose the game is if you fail 2 missions. And the various missions are going to, some of them give you rewards for succeeding them. Some of them give you penalties for failing them. So it really just depends on which cards you have in play. There are actually a ton of different jurors and a ton of different witch cards. So this is a highly replayable game. There's like a starting setup that it recommends that you sort of use your first game.
Just to become familiar.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the challenge cards as well as the missions are also tied to the jurors that you have in play. But the more you play the game, you can actually customize which witches you're playing with because some of their abilities sort of combo off of the various like family names that are in the game.
Okay.
because there are several witches that come from the same
Same,
family.
okay.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting aspect. Now, some penalties in the game will require you to discard these villager cards, which is another way in which you can lose the game, is if you discard a certain amount of them. If you run out of curse cards in your deck, that's another way that you can lose the game. But basically, each round, you only go through one mission. And at
Okay.
the end of the round, you can either choose to play another round, picking another juror to try to overcome their mission, to basically just try to increase their persuasion points.
It all
Or you
comes
can-
down to that.
It all comes down to that,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Or you can just eventually choose to go to trial. And unfortunately, there are some penalties in the game that just say, if you fail this, you're going to immediately go to trial.
Oh.
And going to trial is when you actually reveal all the conviction cards and do the math
And compare
see
to your
and compare.
persuasion. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what it comes down
Okay.
to. The game is basically this like deck optimization game with the witches, because every time you play around, you're having to decide whether you'd like to play them as hidden or play them as revealed. So that is one of the first sort of strategic decision points. And then how to divvy out the power amongst the challenge cards so that you take the least amount of penalties while also accomplishing these missions to increase their persuasion.
So it's not a deck builder.
It's really like a deck
Color.
optimization loser.
Okay. Okay.
There are some effects in the game that allow you to add new cards to the witch deck, but more often than not, you are losing cards from your deck because you're choosing
way you
when to
played it.
actually reveal these cards, play
Okay.
them as revealed witches.
I gotcha.
So that's essentially the basic gist of the game. Like I was mentioning, there's a lot of replayability. So if you enjoy this sort of system, then there are a lot of different witch cards. There's actually a campaign that you can play. And then there are several different jurors, and you only play with 3 of them each time. For me, though, I think the system of the game, I think I'm learning because, I'm not really new to solo gaming anymore,
Yeah.
but I sort of started my journey not too long ago. And I'm still learning like which types of genres of solo games that I enjoy. And I think for me, games that are heavily card dependent, where basically the entire game is just built off of different types of cards, I think they're just not for me,
That's fair.
honestly.
Okay.
So the system of the game I thought was just okay, because the system is basically this like decision point with the decks and just divvying out values. I didn't find it to be the most interesting in terms of decision points. The art is stellar. The game is also quite challenging, and I do like the fact that you can construct your deck. I think that makes the game more interesting. The fact that you construct the deck before you even start playing, so that I feel like that's a part of the strategy.
For more experienced players.
Yeah, for more experienced players, exactly. But for me, like I said, the main aspect of the game, which is the overcoming of missions, I found to be just okay. And it is possible that it's a preference thing, like a genre preference thing. So if you enjoy games that have like a lot of card play and you're a dedicated solo gamer, I do recommend you try it because it does have a lot going for it. And like I said, the replayability is very high. But for me, it was just okay.
Okay.
So, anywho, that is the solo game Witchcraft.
Okay, moving on to the third game we want to talk about. This is much less spooky.
Yes.
There are some spooky character
Those were the
elements
spooky games.
in here. But we have Unmatched Battle of Legends Volume 3. So this one introduces 4 new characters, 2 new maps. If you're familiar with Unmatched, it's basically a 2-player, well, you can play more, but we play a 2-player dueling game where you're basically one of these characters and you have an asymmetric deck and you're trying to battle it out. This one encompasses Blackbeard, Chupacabra, Pandora, and Loki from Restoration Games, and it is designed by a team of people.
Yes.
Many designers.
So we've featured Unmatched, I think, a couple of times
Several
in the past.
times,
This is it's a card-based battler where you're basically trying to bring your opponent's health down to 0. But sort of the thing about the game is its asymmetry. It typically features combination of characters either from different cultures or just from popular media. I believe there's like a Marvel set.
There's Little Red Riding Hood.
There are lots of different sets out there. And specifically, the volumes are the ones that have 4 characters in them. And this is the third one. This is the one that most recently came out. So we played all 4 characters. We've also played on both sides of the board because the boards also feature different rules for play. Typically, depending on the character, there's also some sort of thematic mechanism that ties into the asymmetry of that character. So then, starting with Chupacabra. Chupacabra is probably the least complicated of all of the characters in this one.
More
because
basic than the other ones.
it's the one exception, basically, to that. They don't really have their own special rule They just have a standard deck of cards. They don't even have any sidekicks or anything like that, but they are quite strong. Chupacabra is a Latin American cryptid, and so it sort of thematically checks out that they would have a stronger deck. The weaker they become, the stronger they become. They can also draw additional cards from their deck, but no additional sort of rule set for them.
Yep.
So if this is your first time playing Unmatched and you want to sort of go for a character that has the least amount of fuss, then it's going to be Chupacabra. As for the other three characters, there's also Blackbeard, who has doubloons.
Doubloons, and I think 2 sidekicks that are like his mates. And those doubloons, you can basically spend a doubloon to take an extra action, but anytime you spend a doubloon, you have to give it to your opponent. And if your opponent amasses enough of these doubloons, they can basically counteract some of the actions on your cards because there's like a negating effect by your opponent spending the doubloons back to you.
Right. There's some cards in Blackbeard's deck that allow Blackbeard to do additional actions or additional bonuses unless their opponent can pay a ransom, which is going to be in the form of those doubloons that they're given.
So the doubloons go back and forth between the players.
Yes, and that is the main sort of aspect of Blackbeard's deck. Next, there's Pandora, and Pandora is a Greek god, I believe. You know, we all know Pandora from Pandora's Box, and so that is the main mechanism when playing as this character. Pandora has this deck of extra cards called Miseries, I believe, and at the start of your turn, you're required to draw one. It is a push your luck element of the game because these cards can either be great or they can be nothing and just be full of risk, because after you're done resolving the card, and these cards can do stuff like allow you to draw an additional card, or one of the ways in which you can put out Pandora's sidekicks is via these cards, or maybe they can make your attack stronger that turn. But basically, after you're finished resolving the card, then you decide if you'd like to continue drawing.
Yep.
And either you'll stop drawing, or if there are enough feathers, I believe it's like 3 or more feathers.
Yeah, so some of these cards, they'll have some won't have no feathers on it, and some will have up to 2 feathers on it. If ever you draw 3 feathers total, then you are going to take damage equal to how many cards you've drawn.
Yes, so there is a little bit of that risk, but you get to do this push your luck game at the start of all of your turns. So that is Pandora, and Pandora has some sidekicks that will, go onto the board whenever they're summoned.
Yeah, and then they'll get in the way of your opponent. They kind of create barriers to kind of protect yourself, just like most of the sidekicks do in this game.
Right, and finally we have Loki, who plays tricks on their opponent.
Yes.
In
You were
Loki's
Loki,
deck,
I was not.
There are trick cards, and whenever they're played, instead of getting discarded, they actually go into your opponent's hand. And if at any point the card gets discarded or played by their opponent, then the trick aspect of the card gets
Triggered.
And the trick aspect is always beneficial for Loki. And then instead of the card going into Loki's discard, it actually goes back to Loki's hand. So Loki does have the ability to sort of reuse cards, force their opponent to have to make decisions regarding these trick cards. It can kind of be annoying for their opponent.
You got to remember, if you're familiar with Unmatched, you have a hand limit.
Yes.
So if Loki's cards are starting to clog up your hand, you're like, I got to get rid of these things. The only way I can get this off my back is by spending it, but now I'm going to have to enact the trick that's on here. So that becomes kind of like one of your problems that you have to deal with.
Point, right? Yeah, but the rest of Loki's deck is not very strong. So I will say you have to play very cleverly, I guess, when playing as Loki to try to make those trick cards actually, work towards your advantage.
Yeah, you can actually, like, as Loki, you can be like, I'm going to use this card. You're going to take it. I'm going to buy some time with my own hand. And then whenever you're ready to give it back to me so I can unleash it on you.
Yes,
so there's some clever play with Loki.
Yeah, that is Loki. So those are all 4 characters that come with the game. Now, I'm a big fan of Unmatched.
Yeah, same.
I am always sort of like looking to see what the new iteration of these characters are going to be. Which ones were your favorite?
I did like Blackbeard. For you talking about for this one?
Yes, for this set, yes.
I did like Blackbeard. I like that whole doubloon going back and forth. And I actually did like Loki as well.
Yeah.
The playing tricks. So maybe this concept of like swapping and I liked. Pandora, I had played as Pandora. It was fine. The push your luck part of the Pandora flipping of the cards wasn't too interesting to me. It was fine, but like as Pandora, I didn't feel like it was like this major like thing that I was like kind of embarking on or anything. And then I did not play as Chupacabra. You did play as Chupacabra.
Yes, a Chupacabra is just very strong. So like I was saying, if you just want a low fuss character, somebody that you can really do a lot with, Chupacabra is probably the character in this set. Loki, as interesting as Loki's deck is, I found him hard to play as.
Yeah.
because some of like his attack cards were like 0 strength or something like that. Like you really have to figure out a way to be strong with that deck. Like you have to try to play in a clever way. And playing against Blackbeard was also really annoying because Blackbeard has a lot of control over
when the doubloons go
when the
into your
doubloons come out.
possession.
Yes. I felt like I was getting played. Like I think that combination of like Loki and Blackbeard, ooh.
Yeah.
It's like hard to play as Loki and then you're getting played against Blackbeard.
Yeah, like
So-
you want to spend those, you can avoid what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, but I do think that Blackbeard is a cool character. And surprisingly, if I just want to like try to win the game in a low fuss way, Chupacabra I think was just
probably
like the
a
easiest
good way
one
to
to
go.
play as. Yeah. Like I mentioned though, I'm a big fan of Unmatched, so I think that this specific volume, I don't think we played all the characters from the other 2 volumes, but this
Maybe
one we
not,
have.
yeah.
And I thought that the characters felt innovative.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that they put in there for the thematic application of these legends, I guess, I thought were really interesting.
Yeah, if you want to see a gameplay of this, I'll leave a link up here as well in the description, and you can check out one of the playthroughs that we've done on the channel as well.
Now, in addition to the characters, there are also 2 new like board sets. There's
Maps,
the Venice rooftops as well as Santa's Workshop, and I love anything holiday themed,
Yeah.
so I was really excited to play the Santa's Workshop side of the board. The Venice side is it's cool in theme because it's kind of like you're hopping around to the various rooftops.
Yeah.
The thing with that one is just that some spaces are connected, some spaces you have to kind of go around because it's kind of it really is thematically like you're hopping from roof to roof.
Yep.
But there's no other real rules to it.
That one was more basic
Yeah.
than what Santa's Workshop offers.
Yes, it's just especially if you're playing like a 4-player game, it's just about sort of like how you can run away and how to like catch each other. The Santa's Workshop side of the board is interesting because it has this like
Conveyor belt?
conveyor belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that requires you to move down the conveyor belt every turn.
Yeah, so like if you have a character on a part that is part of the conveyor belt, at the end of the turn, you will be forced to move 1 space.
Yes.
And then if they're still there at the next turn, then you're going to continue to move. So you get these
Yeah.
kind of passive moves along the way. But sometimes it's like if your opponent is like running away to lick their wounds, you're like, I gotta
You're
get up.
chasing
And then
them.
like you're getting kind of dragged back down.
And eventually, if you reach the last space of a conveyor belt, you get tossed into the toy
Like a toy bin?
box,
Yeah.
the toy bin that you
Yeah.
can only enter in through certain areas. So I thought that was interesting.
Of the 2, I enjoyed Santa's Workshop's map better.
Yes, I did too. I mean, there's a little bit more to it than the Venice one. The Venice one is like if you just want to play the game for the game itself, then you just kind of go with the Venice map. But the Santa's Workshop had a little bit more to it. But there you go. That is Unmatched Battle of Legends Volume 3.
There you go.
All right, moving on to the final game of today's video. This is a new game from Stonemaier Games called Origin Story. So this is a game designed by Jamie Stegmaier as well as Pete Wissinger with art by Clementine Campardou, who I believe is the same artist as games such as Wormspan.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a few games that she worked on, but
Looks like it.
this is another one. And so this is actually a trick-taking game, and it plays solo. It plays 1 to 5 players.
1 to 5 players.
And thematically, in this game, it's played over the course of 5 rounds, and it's called Origin Story because over the course of the 5 rounds, you are building a superhero. You're starting from the very beginnings of their story, and you're sort of developing what sort of happened along the way to get them to their final superhero form.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a trick-taking game.
Yeah, so like you're building up your character from round to round with different abilities based off of kind of the setup of every single round. And so there's kind of a currency in the game where you're trying to enact certain abilities because the game is a typical standard trick taker where it's like a
Yes.
must follow with a trump suit. And so you are trying to earn points. Obviously, by the end of the game, that's exactly what you're trying to do. But it's kind of like your story along the way and the different combinations of abilities on how you can kind of break and tweak the rules of a standard trick taker and kind of like play out in 5 rounds and kind of just see what you've created by that point.
And so like I was mentioning, the game plays 1 to 5 players. We have not played this solo, and we also have not played it at 5. We
Right.
played it at higher player counts, and we actually also have a 2-player playthrough of this that we filmed
yeah.
for both our Patreon and membership communities. Now, we did that so that we can sort of understand what it feels like to play the 2-player variant of it, but it's not a polished playthrough, which is why we sort of just put it on those.
it over there, yeah.
Put it there.
Yeah, because when we played it, we originally played it at the higher player counts.
Yes.
And then when we're like, how would this play at 2?
Yeah.
So then we decided to like, okay, we should probably play this at 2
Yeah.
to really speak on this game at the
Right.
different player counts.
And we figured, we're already playing it, so we might as well film it. So if you're
film.
interested in seeing it at 2, it is available there. Like Naveen was mentioning, this is a standard trick-taking game at its heart. So if you're familiar with trick-taking games, that means it's must follow. There is one trump suit. The suits are actually like different thematic.
It's like,
It's brain, speed, strength, and love.
none
and which
of what I
one
said.
do
Energy.
you think is the trump suit?
Yeah.
Of course, it's love.
Love is the trump. Love trumps all.
Yes, and so each round, what's going to happen is each player is given they're given a hand of cards for the round, but you're also given 3 story cards, and these cards are what's going to allow you to break the rules. This is sort of the actual aspect of the game that sets it apart from other trick-taking
It's like
games.
your character personal asymmetric ability building.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can be like a super suit, or it could be an ally, or there are different I guess genres of these story cards, but they'll basically do things like add +1 to the blue suit whenever you play it, or swap out some cards from your hand before starting the round. There are a ton of these story cards, and they all have a certain amount of stamina requirement that you need to pay in order to charge the card so that it's actually valid to be used during the round. So each player is going to gain an additional stamina token, which is a currency in the game. And before you start the round, you choose which of your story cards on your tableau to actually charge. Because even if you're choosing these story cards, they're not all going to be active every round.
Yeah, so you're going to get your hand of cards, and you have whatever story cards you have already selected over the course of the game. Any story card that you've chosen, like in round 1 or round 2, will stick with you because this is your origin story over the course of the 5 rounds as to how you became said superhero that you've just kind of created amongst these story cards.
Right.
So you will look at your hand and say, okay, based off this hand, I think I should allocate to these different abilities.
Yes.
For this round, because with this hand, this is kind of a mid hand, so I'm really going to need this, and
the
this
help
ability.
of these things,
exactly, to help me move on.
Right, which also means that the further you go in the game, or the further you play the game, the more of these story cards you'll have, because you're only playing 1 story card per round. So in the first round, you'll only have your actual
main character ability plus 1 card.
Plus 1 card, exactly, to choose from to actually power up. So you do get stronger. You have more tools under your tool belt by the end of the 5th round. At the start of the 3rd round, there's also 1 event card that'll come into play just for the round. And it's funny because there's actually a big deck of event
I
cards.
think there are 18 event cards, and you'll ever only pull 1 in any like gameplay.
Any game. You're just going to play 1.
So there's plenty.
There's plenty to experience. And then at the start of the 5th round, each player during setup was given 2 face-down superheroes that you can see, but they're kept secret until the start of the 5th round, where you're actually going to choose one of them to reveal and put into play.
Yes.
And that is your final superhero form.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the game, you know what 2 combinations of your final potential is going to be. So you can kind of try to play towards it a little bit if possible. But you're ultimately trying to score the most amount of points in this game.
Yes. Now, the thing that we didn't mention is during the round, like before you actually start the trick-taking aspect, there is a dial that keeps track of your points, and all players simultaneously decide if they would like to be a superhero or a supervillain for the round. And that's basically the mechanic in trick-taking games, where you decide if you want to try to score the most amount of points by winning tricks, or if you'd like to win 0 tricks.
Yeah, you want to force it on other people.
Because maybe your hand is so bad that, if you win 0 tricks, then you'll score just a base amount of like 4 points. So that is something that's done simultaneously. And some of the different story cards play to either side of those.
Yeah.
Like some of them help you become a villain. Some of them help you become a superhero.
Like you could have one of your abilities that maybe you selected as a story card could be win a trick with no trump suits in it. If you do that, you get 2 points at the end. So then you're like, okay, with this hand, I want to activate that because I don't have any trumps, and I don't think I can win any tricks with trumps because I don't have any. So then you're going to kind of try to like tailor your gameplay around these kind of different abilities.
Yes, the story cards are all just tools that you can enact when the time is right, depending on the quality of your hand. But that's essentially the game. Now, there is a large deck of story cards. So there is
64 cards,
a wide combination of these different tools you can have each time you play, which means you're going to customize your character very differently each time. There are 5 different player boards, and they all have asymmetric starting superhero origin stories that have their own sort of starting abilities. And so what did you think of the game?
Yeah, so I like trick-taking games.
Yes.
Monique explained it to me kind of like the way we're explaining it to you right now. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking
It's
about.
one of those games where you have to see the cards.
Yeah,
you have to read through the cards and like, okay, I see what it's trying to get me.
Yeah,
to
it's
do.
like, oh, that's what you meant. We're building a character. That was kind of like the
what I
pitch
said.
just was not coming, and I'm like, oh, I see.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But I actually really enjoyed the game at the higher player counts. We'll talk about the
Yes.
2-player experience in a little bit, but at the higher player counts, the trick taking is way more interesting.
Yeah.
The selecting if you want to be a villain versus you want to try to score points the traditional way of just winning tricks as a hero is also more dynamic and more meaningful in a higher player count.
Yes.
Because you're only going to ever play 8 tricks per round. So in higher player counts, there's only so many points you're going to try to grab because everybody is trying to compete for these same points.
Yes, because as a superhero, we didn't mention this, but you score 1 point per trick that you've won.
Yeah.
So your goal is to just win as many tricks as you can.
If you're a villain, that means you're trying to win no tricks. If you're successful in winning no tricks, then you get 4 points.
Yes.
Which is half of winning tricks as a hero.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's going to be harder anyway
yeah.
in like higher player counts to win all 8 tricks unless
Exactly.
you have something really super combo-y, which can happen.
Can happen.
I will say. That is, so I do agree. I think it is way more interesting at higher player counts. And I feel like trick-taking games are sort of like that anyway.
The fact that it said 1 to 5 on the box made us interested after we played higher player counts. Like, okay, what is the 2-player experience like?
Yeah.
So we went back to like make sure to play that.
Yeah, I
so
feel
we can
like
speak on it.
it's really hard to create a trick-taking game that plays evenly at all player counts,
That
right?
plays at 2, but is not exclusively a 2-player game.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
So that's where it like the 2-player game for me was kind of lacking because you use these like sidekicks in a 2-player experience, and these sidekicks are basically it's clever in the way that they're set up. They are also dealt. Your sidekick is dealt a hand. So I have a sidekick. Monique has one, and you can only see of their hand only 2 cards at a time.
Yes.
And it's a must-follow trick-taking game. So if Monique leads with blue and my sidekick has one of their cards as blue, they must play that blue.
Yeah.
But if not, then I get to control that sidekick and I determine what of the 2 cards they play. And so it's just not very dynamic.
Like in theory, it sounds like
yeah.
it should work really well in
Yeah.
a 2-player game. But what we found was that it just made it so much easier for them to play their trump cards, which might be the point, because it's not like, we're going to be winning a majority of hands in a 4-player game necessarily. So
No.
I think it tries to simulate the fact that other people will be winning these hands.
I will say, despite your sidekick being your sidekick, if your sidekick wins the trick, you don't get the points for it.
Correct.
So that's
the
one
sidekicks
thing, yeah.
are not players, and they also never lead. Now, the biggest issue I think that we probably both had with the 2-player game is that there's a large deck of story cards, and the game is pretty much built off of these cards.
As a reminder, story cards are the unique abilities that you're building into your character.
Yes, that you choose every round, and
Yeah.
you choose to charge and all that stuff, and they're not scaled for player count.
It doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't feel like it. Some of them are like, you can't play this in a solo game, but they don't say anything about a 2-player game. And so there are certain things that are like, oh, that is way more beneficial if you're playing that card in a 4-player game because there are more players around the table. Same with the events. So it just didn't feel like it was necessarily geared towards a 2-player experience, but you can play it
It's
at
like
2.
it's like you can, but should you? Probably not, in my opinion.
Now you can,
You can,
but
it's-
higher player counts are more interesting.
The 3 and
Sure.
4-player experience is significantly better. Like
Yes.
for me, this is I would not play this at 2 players.
Yeah, I wouldn't sort of go for the game just to play it at 2.
No.
Like if you're going to play this with a group of players, then definitely way better experience.
Yeah, if you like trick-taking games, if you like asymmetry in in your games, I know you like asymmetric powers in your games.
Yeah,
so
right.
this is like a really nice combination for you.
Yeah, and I think like even the players who we were playing this game with, they found it really interesting to be able to customize your character and customize the abilities and the tools that you'll be able to use from round to round. That is a really cool aspect of the game. That's not something that I've seen in trick-taking games before.
yeah.
And I feel like, there's so many trick-taking games coming out, and that was sort of the way that this became innovative.
Very good theme, connecting with the mechanisms of the game, right? So like it's the origin story. It's like
Yeah.
you were just this simple human, but all of a sudden your superhero powers kind of unlocked after every single round. The game does not overstay its welcome, which I
Yeah,
appreciate. The
it's
5 rounds is
nice.
just right. I had this misunderstanding the first time we played, thinking it was going to be 8 rounds. And when we went into the final round of 5 rounds, I was like, this seems like this should be the last round. You're like, it's
No,
because
this
it
is
is
it.
the last round.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, perfect. So the arc is just right on this game.
Yeah, the arc is just right. But I do think that people will play the game. Some people will leave the game feeling like, oh, some of these cards are not balanced, or like just the way that, you only get to choose one card from round to round, somebody around the table could probably find a way better combination of stuff than you.
Yeah.
And just have this like really OP superhero. That is possible. And I feel like some people will leave the game feeling that way.
But again, you can always go to villain and then get 4
can.
points that way,
Yeah.
while that person who has OP might be just scrounging to get 3 points, you know? of
Yeah,
the 8,
and
so.
it's also really like in a trick-taking games, you really don't know what's going to happen in the round. Like you could feel like, oh, I have this huge hand, and now I have this ability that gives me +2 whenever I play the lightning bolt. But suddenly nobody else has a lightning bolt but you.
Yeah.
And now all of your lightning bolts are worth nothing.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of the point of the game.
Yeah.
It just gives you these tools, and you just kind of have an experience with it.
Like one of my abilities that I thought that everybody around the table thought was very overpowered was if I'm leading the trick, I can basically ask everybody around the table to show me what their highest valued card was.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, oh man, I'm going to use the
so
heck out of this, and I used it, but it's not like I won. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
so
yeah.
This thing. So
He was annoying.
It was annoying. Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't necessarily win with that one thing alone.
So in the end, I actually really, really like this one. We both like trick-taking games, so we have a higher affinity for these kind of games.
Yes.
I don't like it at 2. If I was to just review it on that, I would say I do not like the game. But at 3 and 4, and then I'm thinking at 5, also really, really like it.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely not something that I would like to return to at 2, but I thought it was really interesting at higher player counts. Now, the one thing that we didn't mention is if you have never played a trick-taking game before, I don't necessarily recommend this as your first foray into trick-taking.
Like this, Cat in a Box, probably those are the 2 that I would say don't start with
Play
trick-taking
something
there.
else first,
Yeah.
like be familiar with
Yeah.
trick-taking, and then jump into something like this. Because especially if you play this game with other people who are really familiar with trick-taking, it probably will sour your experience of
yeah.
the game itself.
That's true.
But anywho, that is Origin Story.
you go.
And there you have it. Those were 4 games, some spooky, some not so spooky.
Some definitely not spooky villains,
Yes,
I guess. Yeah.
villains. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that was sort of the running theme.
That was your idea.
Yeah, that was-
her. This is her concept. Yeah.
But anywho, let us know if you played any of these games before, if you recommend any games
Yes.
to play during the season, and what you are playing for the Halloween spooky season as well.
There you go. Well, thank you all so much for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.